attention at the right time, in the wrong place, we unsafe. 151 with no chase and no ice, take away your life like 3 strikes. Yeah. Come on, chamber music. Fragile physique, accomplish more one day than you can do in a week. The X-Man Wolverine, one swing to make the cut.
Hey, what's up everybody? It's your boy J-Rock's up in this piece. Now today I'm gonna be hitting you with a hardcover review. We're gonna be reviewing X-Force Volume 1. This is written by Kyle Yost, and artwork is by Crane and Choi. If you're familiar with X-Men and you follow the continuity, you know Kyle and Yost are one of the longtime X-Men writers. They have long stretches on this series. They work on it a lot, along with also Scott Lobdell, Chris Claremont, and Fabian Nicieza. They're all longtime writers. They're X-Men household names. So this is X-Force. It covers issues 1 through 11 of the 2000. It's the 3rd series, I believe. Okay, now what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna hit you with a review, my brief opinions and so forth, my thoughts on the book, what I thought about it without giving any spoilers away. After I do so, then I'm gonna talk a little bit about the physical quality of this specific format, binding, price, so forth. And then after that, we get into the art, show a few of the interiors, so you could see what's going on. And as I show the art, I'll kind of explain the scenes a little. So when I get to the third part of this with the art and so forth, it might get a little spoilery because I'm gonna show off a few of the scenes and they might be important to the storyline. So if you wish to buy this and you want to be spoiled, don't watch the last part. Okay, so that sounds good to you. You kind of got an idea of what we're gonna do here. This story comes in after the Messiah Complex of X-Men. So you would read this after. At the end of this video, I'll put a link to Messiah Complex if you want to know what happened before this and what led to this. So you could check that out. And now let's get to the review. So if you're a fan of X-Men continuity, you're gonna get a lot more out of this story if you follow the continuity and so forth, as opposed to someone that just occasionally reads a story arc here and there. Now, one thing this book does is it brings back a lot of old enemies, a lot of old characters that have been killed off in the past and so forth, and they all come back right here. A lot of big names, big players in the game. And I like the way it slowly brings each one back, and then you see Wolverine, he eventually sees them all, and he's like, oh shit, like I thought all these guys were dead, and they're back around. You know, so I thought that was like a big, it didn't ruin any part of the story, but it was a big moment wise. You're like, oh shit, this guy's back, this guy's back. So if you're familiar with the characters, you know who they are. If you're not, they won't have the same effect. See what I'm saying? One thing this story does is you have this group called the Purifiers. They're basically a metaphor for the Klan, without straight up telling you it's the Klan. So I like that. You know, when it comes to comics, disguise it a little. Let me use my imagination. Don't just point it out to me. I don't like that. If I want some real world shit, I'll look something outside of superhero comics. I'll look for something different. So yeah, I like when they disguise all that and you kind of get the point without it being pointed out. And it kind of shows that this group, even though they don't have superpowers or anything, at the end of the day, regular man without superpowers or anything, is the most dangerous out of the groups. It's the most dangerous out of all of them, and it's the deepest because there's a lot more regular humans than there is mutants or superheroes. So they're always the big player and they're always the worst. They're the most brutal out of all the X-Men villains and faculties. It's always the most brutalist is the Purifiers. And they're up in here and they're the main players. Who leads them? That gets a little tricky because it's not always the same person. Alright, so that's important because depending on who leads the team, they may have different motives and different motivations, different goals of what they're trying to accomplish and so forth. We get some of that right here. We get a power struggle, as one guy has one idea, one agenda, the other leader has a different agenda, so they bump heads. They don't both want the same thing. One wants to rule the world, the other one wants to destroy it. Obviously those two things are gonna conflict with each other. As far as the characters, you have X-23. She's part of the X-Force team. She comes off as kind of heroic. She makes big moves, but at the same time kind of naive and inexperienced. So she might make big moves, but somebody else would have gone about it in a different way. And Wolverine, as always, he comes off as overprotective and thinking they don't need to get dragged into this. I can do this. I've been there, done that. Kind of attitude, which is fine. I didn't mind it. It's very gory, very gory. The art, it's just a lot of blood, and it's very. It's weird because Crane captures the perfect balance where it looks realistic, but at the same time it looks exaggerated and comic booky. You get both. If you like realistic art or you like comic book art, he finds a balance where you get both. Both types of people will be pleased. I also like the way the narration, because nowadays on these more current books, you don't get thought bubbles. The narration is the thought bubbles. And I like every time a different character has thought bubbles or he's telling you his side of the same story, the narration's a different color, so you know it's a different character thinking or speaking or whatever. I thought that was cool. It makes simplifies things. One thing I noticed is Angel, or here he's Angel and Archangel. He comes off as a plot device to me, and not just in this story, in a lot of X-Men stories. I feel like he's that character that they have a hard time building him up or doing something cool with him. So what they do is like, he's important to the story, but he's not important to the story. What I mean is, he'll do some big move to move the story along, or to get the story going. He'll either be the victim or he'll do some heroic shit. Either way, he'll have like one scene where he's a badass or one scene where he's a victim, and that's it. They don't really do anything to give him character growth here or anything like that, but they might give him a scene to make him look cool. So I always thought that was a problem with this character. He's very one note. They just give him one big move each story and that's it, which I'm not really digging, and I feel like they did that again here. Wolfsbane, she comes off as a basket case, but she's a little bit of a better developed character. She has her daddy issues and so forth. Obviously she was raised in some type of church thing, and her dad is a priest, and it's like, it's kind of, it brings, you know, it's a deeper metaphor for other stuff here. She's a mutant, she looks different, so he's like, you know, the church doesn't accept you, you're an abomination. Kind of how the Christians will be towards gays, so it's a little bit of a metaphor towards that. Mutants can be used as a metaphor for a lot of different things. Jews, racism, a lot of different things. And in this case, she's used that way. But she's interesting. I find her interesting. She does a couple cool things here, and she makes mistakes as well. So she's not perfect. I love characters that are not perfect. When they're perfect, there's nowhere to go from there. When they got a lot of flaws, got a lot of fixing to do, a lot of places where the stories can go. So I always enjoyed her. She's never been a big main character, but she's always been interesting. She's always been cool. I really liked the story. I found it entertaining. It was enjoyable. The art really made it crack for me as well. Now, you gotta keep in mind, this isn't the whole story arc. It's 2 volumes, so it leaves a lot of questions, a lot of stuff unfinished, a lot of loose ends, if you will. So, while I did like it, it leaves a lot of questions. I can't fully judge it just based on this, but you would definitely have to read part 2 to really appreciate the story, see where it's going, and how they because to me the way they stick the landing is very important. The endings to a story is like 80% of the story almost. So yeah, that's like I said, it's very important. So I would give it a higher rating, but I can't, because it's kind of one of those things, has to be judged as a whole. So just this book on its own, I would give it like a 7, and it's a little misleading because if you read the second half, that will probably completely change, which I will read the second half and I'll do a review on that as well. So I'm just gonna leave it at that for now. Now we'll get onto some of the art. They did some real cool stuff here with Wolfsbane, some panels here that I don't want to say here because it could be a little spoilery. So we'll get into that into the third act of the video. I'll explain a little bit of that. So right now we're gonna get into the physical quality, price, and so forth. So let's do that. Okay, here's some of the binding. It lays pretty flat, so you don't get a lot of gutter loss. It's pretty good. Here's the cover, buckram style cover. It says X-Force here. It's in like some type of weird red, or I wouldn't call it burgundy. That's the spine. Nice looking without the dust jacket. So we'll get to some of the interiors right now. Now when we get to the interiors, it's gonna get a little spoilery, like I said. So if you don't want the story ruined for you, don't watch this last part. But before you leave, hit that subscribe button, and you already know, hit that bell. Also, on the description down below. Check out the links. Hit that Goodreads. If you have a Goodreads account, follow me for sure. I'll follow you back. Always like to see everybody's reviews in case you don't like doing videos. It's not your thing. I like to watch your reviews that you put up on Goodreads. Also, great way to keep track of your books. So you keep track of all your books. That's what I do. And then once I give a review to one, that means I read that one. It's, you know, it's on the read list. And they also provide you with little reading challenges and book clubs and so forth. They're entertaining. Check it out. I highly suggest it. Also follow me on Twitter. I'm always active in Twitter. I always drop comments at least once a day. And now let's get to the spoiler part where I check out some of the interiors and bonus features and extras. So if that's not for you, you don't want to be ruined because you plan on buying this, be gone. Okay, you guys ready now? Let's get to it. Alright, as far as the bonus content, you get these cover gallery type thing. That's spoiler here, Bastion and Nimrod turned into one person. This one's a pretty cool cover. I kind of like this one. I was digging it. A lot going on, very busy, but not to the point where it ruins it. Sometimes they throw too much in there, and I don't like that. This is some of Crane's art before the painting and coloring and so. Oh no, this is Mike Choi. I thought it looked a little different than what his style is. Yeah, Mike Choi does a few of these issues, but it still looks pretty good when he does it too. Didn't ruin it for me. Some sketches here. I like watching these raw pencils. I like when they have a little bit like writing here, kind of explaining the process or whatever. Alright, let's get to some of the interiors of the actual story. Here's sort of like the stories that are involved here, the creators, kind of like a table of content. A little forward here. Then we get into the story. Starts off with Wolverine's talking to Cyclops about Cyclops is telling we gotta bring back the X-Force team. Kind of like if you read the Messiah Complex, that's where they started building that team. And you see Cyclops kind of changing in personality. Here are the Purifiers. Now, one of the Purifiers is being arrested by S.H.I.E.L.D. And it turns out S.H.I.E.L.D. has bought off a lot of these S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D., my bad. The Purifiers have a lot of secret agents working for S.H.I.E.L.D. They bought off a lot of the S.H.I.E.L.D. members. I don't know how it works, if they bought them off or if they just joined. Because Purifiers are regular people, so they could just, you know, train and get hired to S.H.I.E.L.D., but really they have secret agendas. Kind of, you know, they're a metaphor for the clan. And you know, the clan, there's members that are judges and cops and different things, where they're not necessarily violent towards people. They're racist, but they're not like violent towards people, but they fuck them over in other ways, like illegally arresting them, or if they're a judge, giving them a harsher penalty and so forth. That's kind of what the Purifiers are. They get jobs in high places, you know, they educate themselves to hold other people down. And here Wolverine finds out that some of these other members that are joining X-Force, he's being overprotected. Like, no, man, they can't do the shit I do. I don't want them carrying that burden and so forth. But he doesn't realize they're grown people. This is Wolfsbane. They're grown people. They make their own choices now. They're not little kids like back when they were in the New Mutants. Some of the art here though is pretty clean. I'm digging it. It's Cranes. So yeah, one of the Purifiers, they find out that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been compromised. You can't know what S.H.I.E.L.D. agents to trust. A lot of them are Purifiers. Thought that was pretty cool. I like what they did with the art here. If you notice, this X-23, Laura Kinney, she's sniffing out what happened. And you see all those shadows. I like what they did there. Like, those shadows mean that's what she's smelling, like where people were walking through and what were they doing. Kind of like detective work. I thought that was real smart and creative of the artist to do that. Or could have been the writer's idea. Here it shows her learning from her mistakes. Like, she goes into things head first, much like Wolverine does. And she screws up a lot that way, because you gotta think ahead and strategize and so forth. And here Wolverine's the calm, collective one, making sure they're prepared before they just jump into a situation. So he's here you see him being a lot different. She's taking the Wolverine role, but with a different personality, but the same type of actions. And he's taking the leader role as like Cyclops would do, but obviously with his personality that's a lot different from Cyclops. So it's good to to keep things interesting. You switch players around, you give them different roles to see how this person would handle that same role, or how this person how things would how the team would run. So that's always good. It's creative, keep things fresh, so it's not always the same. X-Men are known for that. Here, there's a big panel. Could be a spoiler. That's Nimrod. The humans discovered Nimrod. Look at that. That shit just looks fucking bad. The Purifiers discovered him, and they're trying to use that technology to their advantage. And I don't want to ruin too much, so I'll just leave it there.